Is this minimalism thing just a cry for help? Hi guys, I'm Martin Cliffe. Welcome to my YouTube channel and Baby Steps Towards Minimalism, where over the last few weeks I've been looking at the starting steps of my journey into a more minimalist, or at least more intentional lifestyle. And I thought at this stage it would be a good time to kind of explain a little bit of why, a little bit of my story. I apologise for the slightly clickbaity intro. I don't think that it is just a cry for help by any means, but at the same time I do think there is a lot to be said that the type of person that I am, it certainly contributes to the whole reason and the way that this whole thing has come about. So to go back, I mean, I'm 40 years old. I hold my hand up to that. I'm not worried about my age at all. I've lived in Hong Kong now for just over 5 years with my wife. We've been married 16 years over. Life is pretty good. But throughout my life, I have certainly experienced dramatic ups and downs on various fronts. And I am possibly, although it's never been formally diagnosed, I could probably be described as functionally bipolar. Certainly I have experienced some periods of severe depression, both work-related stress connections, which have certainly impacted me at certain periods in my life from a career perspective. I was certainly socially awkward growing up, which did not help. So yeah, I have had challenges in the way that I respond to things and to people throughout my life, and yeah, that's just kind of wrapped up in who I am. I think it's important that that may in some way go to show why I've had this sort of ups and downs in terms of stuff, which is possibly another contributor to why the whole minimalism thing is definitely appealing to me. Now, a couple of videos ago I asked the question of whether, if it's a movement, and if it's a movement, is that a good thing? And yeah, as a Christian, I'm not sure that getting too wrapped up in movements is a good thing if it detracts you from the things that are more important, you know, faith and walk with God and that kind of thing. But at the same time, I think that there is a lot to be said for living a more meaningful and minimalistic lifestyle that is a biblical perspective on life anyway, and certainly a anti-consumerist approach to things is a positive thing. So I'm okay with, to a point, kind of treading the balance, you know, of approaching minimalism, but approaching it from a Christian perspective. A lot of the kind of new age hipster mindfulness minimalism that draws from Buddhism, I'm not necessarily 100% comfortable with, but there's enough good in the movement, although it's not something that I want to be a part of as a movement, that I think is a good thing, that I'm okay with. So how did I get here? Well, I think growing up I had a loving family. I am an only child. My parents were never rich, but they worked very, very hard, and they worked very, very hard to be a family and to be a part of my life, which is hugely important. I, from the age of 8, went to an independent school, a private school, because that was where my mum worked at. And before that point, I always thought we were, well, I didn't really have any perspective on material things, but I always thought we were pretty well off. We lived in one of the bigger houses in the village. But when I got to my school, got to Queggs in Blackburn, all of a sudden there were a lot of people who had a lot of money. And I think in the back of my mind, subconsciously that had an impact on me. Also, I think my dad has always been a collector. He has large collections of music, vinyl and CDs. He has other collections, not to the same extent, but he likes to collect things, and I think that definitely rubbed off on me in some of the things that I've collected over the years. But growing up, and particularly through my 20s and early 30s, I never really had a whole lot of money. Eva and I both had reasonable jobs, so we were never hand to mouth or paycheck to paycheck, but at the same time, we were pretty much, we didn't have spending money to spend on other stuff. And occasionally things, my financial management has not been particularly good over the years, so I've got into debt and I managed to get out of debt, and I've gone into debt and I managed to get out of debt. It has been a process that I've worked through buying, and that was primarily down to buying stuff, mostly music gear in fairness. As in, I've always been a musician, I've always gigged, and I've always wanted to further pursue quality and tone and all that kind of thing. So it's all been kind of with the right kind of mindset behind it, but at the same time, I haven't always made the best decisions in that process. And then coming to Hong Kong in 2013, all of a sudden we found ourselves with money, and as a result, money and not the expenses, not the other living expenses associated with what we were paying in England and all that kind of things. And so it became too easy to spend and too easy to buy. Not a heavy party or a heavy drinker and stuff, so I don't funnel a lot of money into social life or anything like that. Nothing wrong with going out and having a good time a couple of times a month and having a couple of drinks and all that. Don't get me wrong, I'm not opposed to that. But at the same time, we are cautious with how much money we spend in that kind of way. But it does mean that money started getting spent on guitars and amps and pedals and other music gear, some of which is a good thing, and some of which I will be keeping because I make use of and will continue to make use of. But some of the things were maybe bought just for the sake of having more, and this is the kind of thing. Now, we're not talking consumerism on the American kind of scale, and some of the things that I see from America horrifies me of the sheer amount of stuff that Americans hoard. They may not call it hoarding, but that's effectively what it is. A lot of Americans have ridiculous amounts of stuff. We've downsized a couple of times. Obviously, we moved continent and we're limited by what we could bring. So, we've fortunate that we've had to clear stuff out in the past. But, the guitar numbers started building up and the pedal numbers started building up. And alongside that, I was collecting Star Wars Lego, and I was collecting Star Wars Lego at a kind of slightly obsessive rate. So this is something that again built up to an extent where it all became too much. And as part of that and the mental process I was going on, I've had a kind of uneven year. I really struggled to decide whether to renew one of my contracts in the summer. That contract, in the end, I have handed in my notice for Christmas. So after this year, I'll only be doing one job, whereas a couple of months ago I was doing 3. Because I don't need the money. I mean, we're saving money and we're trying to go debt free, but at the same time, just working for the sake of working, and actually which then preventing me from being creative, which is what I want to be. And deep down, all of this pursuit of stuff has been a way to attempt to be creative, or my mind's way of putting off being creative by saying, I need to learn how to do this, or I need to get this to do that. And that's all nonsense, but that's how the confused mind works sometimes. And certainly how my confused mind works sometimes. So this has been my process, my journey, and it took a real wake-up moment, I think, when I realised that guitar number 30 was on the way. I was thankfully able to cancel the order before that happened, although I did own a 30th guitar. When I realised that I had like my next 3 pay packets worth of money allocated to buying music gear that I didn't need. It was just, it all came to a head, and I had a realisation, and thankfully this time I had a realisation before I spent the money, because in previous times I've spent money and then regretted it, which is not to say that I haven't bought things this time that I've regretted, but at the same time I stopped myself before I got to that point. And I've always mentally walked a line between, I would love to be the person who plays, a guitar into a couple of pedals into an amp. That's not the nature of me. But certainly, trying to bring things down to a more simple level. As a musician, the music I want to play, the music I write, is relatively straightforward and does not need a million different sounds. And I can create a lot with my hands. I have musical hands. I have soft hands, if you will, to use a sports analogy. So I live a very fortunate life, but it has been a difficult journey, and I think it's taken time to balance that. And I don't know, I just felt that at this stage in this YouTube channel and this series, it was important to tell a little bit more of my story, about what had gone on. So yeah, this is a formative time, it's a transitive time, life is changing. I am losing significant amounts of weight over the last year or so, I have done. There's been lots of uncertainty in terms of colleagues and friends leaving and where we're going to go next. I've lost people since I've been in Hong Kong. I've lost my best friend, I've lost my granddad, and I've found myself in a situation where basically, for the most part, because of the nature of being in an expat enclave in Hong Kong, my friends are my colleagues, which is nice, but in the same time, particularly when people move on, you then not only lose colleagues who you like working with, but you lose your friends from your social circle as well, and that's hard. So all of this has been contributing to the ups and downs of life, and I think that has added to the unsettledness mentally, which is what has provoked this move towards trying to simplify life. Now, it's going to be a long process, and it's going to be hard, and it's going to take time to sell the stuff that I want to sell, because giving it all away is unfeasible. But anyway, I'm going to stop here, but thank you for watching. I hope my story touches some of you and you can kind of appreciate where I'm coming from. We'll go back to more practical minimalism videos next week, but until then, thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. Particularly comment. I'd love to interact with you. Take care, and I'll speak to you soon.